Subscribe to Earthophilic. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to put my focus on one of the world's most enduring conflicts, the Israeli Palestinian conflict. Israeli Jews and Palestinian Arabs want the same land, and a compromise has proven difficult to find. A 100-year-old issue which isn't going to be sorted anytime soon. Israel is located in Western Asia. It is situated on the southeastern shore of Mediterranean Sea and shares borders with Lebanon on the north, Syria to the northeast, Jordan to the east, and Egypt to the southwest. It is also bordered by the Palestinian territories of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank to the west and east, respectively. The history of the conflict is very old. The origin of Israel and Palestine conflict can be tracked back to the late 19th century. The Ottoman Turkish Empire ruled a large portion of the Middle East from 1516 to 1917. The region was religiously diverse, including Jews, Muslims, and Christians. The century-old Ottoman Empire fell after the Allied powers defeated the Central Forces in World War I. After World War I, Great Britain acted as Palestine's administrator. The British gave Balfour Declaration, which supported Zionism. In the other countries of the world, the Jews were discriminated against, persecuted, and harassed. So they wanted to establish their own state to be safe and secure. So they chose Palestine to do that. The problem was, Palestine, where they wanted to create their state, was inhabited by an Arab majority who had been there for more than 1,000 years. The British rule allowed the Jews to migrate and settle in Palestine, despite all the Arab resistance and opposition to it. There were increasing tensions and hostilities between Jewish and Arab communities in the region. A lot of Palestinians lost their homes and jobs because of Jewish immigration. Britain tried to satisfy both the sides, which was impossible because both the communities had different ideas and visions for this territory. British efforts to bring the Zionists and the Arabs together failed, ultimately leading to the Arab Revolt of 1936. In 1947, the United Nations came up with a plan. This partition plan said that there were going to be two states in Palestine, a Jewish state and a Palestinian state. This plan was not accepted by Arabs in Palestine because the Jews were given 55% of the territory. The Palestinians ended up with 45% even though they were the majority at the time. In the year 1948, the British Army departed from Palestine, leaving Jews and Arabs to fight it out in the war that followed. When Britain announced that it was withdrawing its troops from the region on May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion, the first Prime Minister of Israel, declared the establishment of Israel as a new state in Palestine, which led to the First Arab-Israeli War. It ended with a defeat for the Arabs. In Israel, the war is remembered as the War of Independence. Israel also gained some territories formerly granted to Palestinians. Almost 1 million Palestinians were forced to leave the region where they were living because all of a sudden it became Israel. The Palestinians remember the war as Nakba, the catastrophe, which led to the displacement of Palestinians. There were 3 more wars between Israel and different Arab countries. The War of 1967 is the most important one. At the end of this war, Israel gained a big victory. The Israeli victory on the ground was also overwhelming. Israeli units drove back Syrian forces from the Golan Heights, took control of Gaza Strip and the Sinai Peninsula from Egypt, and drove Jordanian forces from the West Bank. Importantly, the Israelis were left in sole control of Jerusalem. Most of the Palestinian refugees and their descendants live in Gaza and West Bank, and also in some of the neighboring countries like Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. Neither they nor their descendants have been allowed by Israel to return to their homes. Israel says it would overwhelm the country and also threaten its existence as Jewish state. The Palestinian Liberation Organization (PLO) is a political and militant organization founded in 1964 with the initial purpose of establishing Arab unity and statehood over the territory of former mandatory Palestine, in opposition to the State of Israel. It is headquartered in the city of Al-Bira in the West Bank and is recognized as the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people by over 100 countries that which it has diplomatic relations. Yasser Arafat, a popular Palestinian political leader and also the chairman of PLO from 1969 to 2004, he engaged in a series of negotiations with the Israeli government to end the conflict and was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1994. Arafat remains a controversial figure. Palestinians generally view him as a martyr who symbolized the national aspiration of his people. Israel, however, criticizes Arafat that he put his desire to destroy the Jewish state above his dream of building an autonomous Palestinian state. Tensions are often very high between Israel and Palestinians living in East Jerusalem, Gaza, and West Bank. Gaza is ruled by Palestinian militant group Hamas, which has fought Israel many times. The primary approach to solve this problem today is a so-called two-state solution, which would establish Palestine as an independent state in Gaza and in West Bank, leaving the rest of the land for Israel. But there are several issues that Israel and the Palestinians cannot agree on. These include what should happen to Palestinian refugees, whether Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank should stay or be removed, whether the two sides should share Jerusalem, and perhaps most tricky of all, whether a Palestinian state should be created alongside Israel or not. Though the two-state plan is clear in theory, both the sides are still deeply divided on how to make it work in practice. The alternative to the two-state solution is one-state solution, wherein the land becomes either one big Israel or one big Palestine. But this was dismissed by both the sides. Still, hope for a peaceful resolution remains. That's all from my side. Thank you for joining me today. Bye-bye and take care.